Hey, NOSA community, and welcome back. Welcome to our office hours today. As always, thanks for being a part of our YouTube family and any of our social media family out there. We are glad to have you here. And of course, welcome back again to office hours. We'll be doing a virtual office hours today at 12 p.m. Eastern. So click the link below to join live if you have questions you want to share as well. If you just want to hear some of the responses I have for some of the questions that we've seen posted into the group and other social media platforms, you can just check us out here on our YouTube channel. So let's get started. So it is a amazing week, a short week for many of us. So we have some quick questions from our group that we're going to answer. As always, if you have a different take, if you want to share some insight or give some different experiences, feel free to do so as well. So, the first question is when applying for a temporary nurse's license, there are questions pertaining to prior revenue costs on the application. And it's saying, seeing that we haven't been in operation for long, do we just leave it blank? And also, what's the best way to calculate what you will charge facilities for skilled nursing? So this is a two-part question. So I thought this was a good question, especially for individuals in states where they actually have to go through an application process separate from the creation of your business. And I also wanted to touch on from this question a little bit about when you're submitting applications for either a nurse registry or nurse services agency. This particular person is located in Illinois. There's a few other states that require like an physical application that you would need to complete, but this also will apply in places like your um, workers' compensation or business insurance. They may ask some similar questions. So, my response to that is to estimate. So, in the beginning stages of setting up your business, you really want to make sure that you created a business plan. So, this is why it's so important. And so many people that have talked to me or even follow this channel here have heard me say, you really need a business plan. Do you need a business plan in the very beginning? Maybe not, but you need an outline. You need a roadmap to kind of tell you where you're going, how much you're going to spend, give you an estimate of how much it could potentially cost, you know, operational expenses. If you have to get a commercial space expenses, you have to factor all those things in the beginning, right? Before the business launches. So in this case, where it says revenue or prior revenue, you can put zero, so that's always an option. But you also could put an estimated revenue, which is what I would encourage you to do. So you can estimate it on a very conservative level, where maybe you're only, working with X number of employees. Bill rate is this, and a lot of that information is out there in the group, out there online, and through your budget come up with a conservative amount to include as an estimate for your application. And that also gives you a number to work with as your business grows so that you can kind of say, hey, this year we anticipate this amount in revenue or this amount of income. Let's make sure that we take these into account, or let's look into maybe expanding the business. So essentially, with the revenue question, you can't put zero, but I encourage you guys to actually try to crunch the numbers to come up with a number that suits you at the level that you ultimately want to be a year into the business. There's a lot of different platforms and calculators, and we may take a look at the calculator that we've used at some point, but put a number in, use that number, make sure that number is in your business plan, make sure that you're actually crunching real numbers. And I know this second part of the question is like, how do you calculate how much you would charge? That depends on your location. There's so many variables that go into really identifying how much you would charge. Location, specialty, the rate of the area, if the area may be in crisis, what other agencies are charging. So there's a lot of variables when you talk about how much you would charge. So I think when we do that, we'll share that with you guys so that you can get a better idea of how to do that. So as always, if you haven't gotten a chance, go ahead and check us out on all our social media, especially on our YouTube channel here where you're checking out this video. And go ahead and subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. Check us out for office hours if you have time. But also, think about clicking that alert bell where you can get updates on new content that we're putting out. As we're putting out more and more content this month, we want to just definitely get into some of the operational questions and some of the processes that a lot of people have been asking about, some of the nuts and bolts. Hey, I started my agency, or hey, I launched my agency. Now, how do I get it started? So, some of that day-to-day operational stuff in business that sometimes we don't take into account or spend enough time with, whether it's recruiting, marketing, payroll, getting insurance quotes, paying taxes. So, all those types of questions. So, make sure to follow us on our social media. All right, on to our last and final question. This question is, I'm in Illinois and I have questions. So this person is Illinois, um, and she's saying, how many hours per day per week do you spend on your business? So this is a good question as well, and I've included it because they felt like they were similarly minded. Because a lot of times people start the business or their businesses in addition to working a part-time full-time job. So like maybe they're working 40 or 36 hours, or maybe they're working less than 36 hours. So more of the question in my opinion is kind of, how do you juggle, how do you do both? And then the second part of the question was, what were the roundabout startup costs and what was the biggest hurdle? So if you guys have any experiences that you want to share, definitely share it in the comment section below. That's a really great way to give people a variety of experiences as well as expectations. But I will say all of this is person specific because everybody's dynamic is not the same. So it's impossible to give you a one size fits all, but we can, like they were asking, kind of give you a general idea, and really give you a chance to think through how your business could potentially be impacted by the process. So, how many hours? So, I tell this story, and this is me. How many hours per day a week do you spend on your business? A lot of times people have a very weird misconception that you spend less time on your own business than you do working for other people as employees. And it's really the opposite. So, in the very beginning, for our business, I was working 16 hours a day. And part of that was because our business was started in New Mexico on mountain time. So we really had to be available to cover. So the benefit was, um, if I was up at 6 a.m., those people that were getting off work or kind of transitioning shifts were getting off as people were coming in. So there was a little bit of cover. My business partner would do the latter part of the shift until the morning. So I was really working 6 hour shifts. So I was really working from 6 a.m. to about midnight. But it just depends, on what's happening. So that's really what the schedule was for me. Um, I encourage people, if you don't have a partner in business, that you really, really take out the time to be super organized so that you can give that time. So, because I had a business partner, that allowed a lot of flexibilities. Early on, I didn't work full time, but there were periods of time that I did. So, um, I handled all of the business operations internally, from the application to the job posting to the hiring process to working with schedulers and all of that initially. So you still have to work because you have to cover a shift, and we work in an industry that is 24 hours. So if you're working solo, it's very, very challenging to do that, but it's possible. So you work a lot of hours. So that's why I encourage people to kind of have a true plan for themselves, because in addition to doing that, you still have to do life. You still have to deal with family. You still have to deal with personal matters. If you have children, marriages, things of that nature, household stuff, that stuff doesn't just stop. So I will encourage people to really have conversations, especially with your family, about, how it may impact things a little bit, as well as seek a support system, which I know a lot of you guys do by joining the NOSA group. Like, that's kind of your second home, your support to ask questions, get information. And then if you're in a position hire a virtual assistant. I always am an advocate of hiring somebody part-time, but before doing that, you really want to have an outline about what they're going to do. So don't hire anybody if you're not sure what you're going to have them do. And if you're not sure it's going to be a return on your investment. And for some people in the early stages, the biggest investment is time. So you want to really think through some of those things, like what's taking up the most amount of your time? Can you automate that process? Could you hire someone to do that process? Does it make sense? What would you do if you were able to replace doing that particular task, whether it would be with a personal automation? What else would you spend your time on? So a lot of that is understanding the flow of your day, understanding how your day works, your flow, and then being really organized. I can't speak highly enough about not being organized will affect your business. And a lot of times we have a misconception as far as, oh, well, I can be this way personally and be opposite professionally. And typically it's not like that. Typically, if you are a little unorganized, a little messy, a lot of that will drop into your business life. It's hard to kind of turn the switch off and on. So, while you're in the beginning stages and you're just getting the process started, work on those things. Learn some new skills. Go over to YouTube University. You're already here, and really hone on and perfect presentation skills, organizational skills, um, budgeting skills, um, you know, how to be better at time management. These are all opportunities for you to do that. So per day, I think most of you guys will agree it can be up to 16 hours a week, 50, 60 hours a week, um, that you could spend on the business. And a lot of that's based on how quickly you grow, where you're located, kind of where you are prior to starting the business. So it's good to kind of do a needs assessment to kind of think, hey, these are the things I'm good at. These are the things I might need help with. So the second question on this question is, what were the roundabout startup costs? So I talk a little bit, and I'll drop that video here in the comment section. I talk a little bit about some of the startup costs, but one of the major startup costs was around payroll. So you have to have payroll. Even if you have a funding company, you should have some means of payroll um, to allow for the what ifs, which means what if the check is late? What if there's an issue with the bank? You want to always have some sort of buffer. And then you also want to think about things like unexpected expenses that could go up. Example would be your business insurance. For a lot of people, your business insurance, especially your workers' comp, has gone up over the last years because there's more liability. Costs to do certain things may go down, like commercial space. If you have to get that, that might be a little bit more affordable. So you always want to kind of identify your costs as a fixed cost or a non-fixed cost, and then put them in their buckets, and then do the research to identify where you are. So like payroll costs typically can be more of a variable cost. But if you're renting commercial space, that could be considered more of a fixed cost. So that cost isn't going to change that much month over month. Another fixed cost could be paying for like Microsoft Office or G Suites. That could be a fixed cost. If you're paying for Zoom, those could be fixed costs. So kind of lining them up really will help you in identifying one where your money can go towards. But for the most part, the biggest cost is payroll. I encourage people to have at least 3 months of payroll. And then also you want to think about any other space, any other systems, any other people that'll be a part of that internal operational team. And then the last part of the question, which is also a great one, what was the biggest hurdle? I think the biggest hurdle was understanding all the pieces involved. So, like, I think that there are many biggest hurdles, but I think for many NOSAs, the biggest hurdle is understanding that there are so many pieces to the puzzle that you're not seeing on the front end. Many times as nurses or healthcare professionals, we see on the front end, hey, they're just sending people out. Like that's sometimes the perception. Or all you got to do is fill out the paperwork, and then people get to go out and work these different positions. But there's a few different pieces involved that kind of all play together. So having those pieces in place, I think the understanding the business side of healthcare staffing is really key, where I'm not really talking about the process of sending the employee to go to work. I'm talking about all those other things, the insurance, the payroll, obtaining contracts, marketing, how to position yourself in the market, how to sell to clients. Those pieces probably have been some of the biggest hurdles in getting started. So, as always, thanks for hanging out with us here on our YouTube channel. We're glad to have you. If you haven't, feel free to subscribe to our channel. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. Check out our community board here for updates and polls. If you have a question, feel free to drop it here on this particular video or any of our social media platforms to get your question answered. And as always, feel free to join us every other Wednesday. So we'll be doing it this Wednesday. So the Wednesday after next at 12 p.m. Eastern, click the Zoom link here and get more information about our office hours. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. As always, have a good one and we'll be chatting with you.